You're listening to Uproar, a podcast of the Akron Zoo that gives listeners a behind-the-scenes look at the zoo, our amazing animals, and the dedicated people who work here. With your Uproar hosts, Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Sam James, and Elena Bell. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Uproar.
Welcome to Uproar. We have Keeper Jessica here with us today. Keeper Jessica is our lead grizzly, coyote, and red wolf keeper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. Is this your first podcast?
It sure is.
Tell us about some things about what you do here at the zoo.
So, as you mentioned, I'm the principal grizzly and canine keeper here at the zoo. So, my job, I get to feed and take care of those individual animals, but I also get to work on the carnivore team, working with all of our big dangerous animals and some of our small mammals. So, a normal day for me is to check on the bears. We feed them, clean up after them, and then one of my favorite things to do is give them fun things to do out on habitat and, of course, training.
What does training involve? What does that look like?
So a lot of the times we try to have our animals participate in their own health care. And so our bears will voluntarily receive their shots. And right now we're actually working on blood collection.
Are we collecting blood just for like their annual testings?
Yeah, it's a more preventative thing. So we'll collect their blood and look at all the different things that are read in a blood test just to monitor their health. Right now, they are middle-aged, so it's a really good thing to have a good baseline as they age, and we can monitor to see if there's any changes. This is all really good welfare for our animals. That way we don't have to put them under anesthesia if we don't have to.
How do you get a blood draw or give a vaccine to a 700-pound grizzly bear?
That's a great question and a very common one. To do blood collection, we teach them to sit, and once they're trained to sit, we can move them into a scale, and they are to present their paws at shoulder length level on the mesh, and then we can put barriers behind them. We've been using some of their enrichment or toys to encourage them to be closer to the mesh when they're sitting. And so they're slowly bringing their foot closer to a port that will allow us to actually touch and manipulate their foot to get a successful blood draw from a vein that runs down there.
That's cool. What kind of treats do they prefer / do you use to train them?
So their favorite treat that they get normally or on a daily basis are grapes, and then we can also bring out the peanut butter, the jelly. Sometimes they prefer baby food, depends on the day.
Gerber baby food?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
What's their favorite Gerber baby food?
It is strawberry, apples, and the berry medley.
That's my
Zach,
favorite.
I think I
was
saw
gonna
you
say,
had
yeah,
that for lunch
I had
yesterday.
that for lunch yesterday. It was delicious. It was delicious.
And then if anyone cares, citrus is not real great. They spit
Noted.
it out.
Noted.
So speaking of human food, one of my favorite bears of all time is Yogi. And so is there any truth to that show? Like, will they rob picnic baskets and stuff in the wild, or they'd rather stay away from humans?
Well, what I would like to say is they would like to stay away from people, but a bear's got to do what a bear's got to do, and they do venture into campgrounds, into heavily human populated areas, and rummage through garbage bins and end up in people's backyards. So there is some truth to that.
What would you suggest people do to keep that from happening if they're camping in the wild where there might be bears?
That's a great question. So my recommendation is if you do have food products, chances are you're traveling with a vehicle. So keeping all those food items locked in a vehicle, anything that you would desire, even different types of drinks like sodas, keeping it all in a locked vehicle is the safest option, or getting bear-proof items.
People and food is actually a great lead-in. Can you tell me, how did Jackson and Cheyenne come to live at the Akron Zoo?
So they were originally born in Wyoming to a wild mom. So unfortunately, she became a nuisance bear. And what that means is out in Wyoming, there is a 3-strike rule. And so she ventured into a human populated area 3 times and was doing something there that made locals uncomfortable, and so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife intervened, relocated her, and on the third time, she was unfortunately removed from the population, which left Jackson and Cheyenne as orphans. So at that time, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife was working with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and they found a temporary home at the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo with their 2 grizzly bears. At that time, Akron was building Grizzly Ridge, and I believe about a year later, they ventured here, and they are the first inhabitants of Grizzly Ridge, and they'll be here forever.
So Jackson and Cheyenne have quite the personalities.
They
Can
do.
you kind of tell us some stories? I mean, we've all seen them just act really silly and goofy, but can you talk to us some stories about how maybe they've done some funny stuff?
Cheyenne is the boss. It's her world. We just live in it.
As it should be.
Right? Girls rule, guys. Sorry. And then Jackson, we like to joke around here that he really likes his feet, but he is a secret genius. So... but he does not let that on very often.
Why do you call him a secret genius?
He likes to give off that goofy appeal, but I'll tell you what, when I'm working with him, he does things very specifically, and he might do something, especially in training sessions, where he's like, oh, I know what you want, but I'm going to get more treats out of this to make it last longer.
It sounds very similar to when I'm trying to train my dogs.
Right.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about the red wolves and the coyotes here too?
Sure. Right now we have 4 red wolves. It's a family pack made up of mom, dad, and their 2 offspring from last year. So the kids are a year old. The way we work with our red wolves is completely different than how we work with our grizzly bears. We're pretty hands off with them because there's a project that the Akron Zoo's participated in where they're involved in a reintroduction project. So this group was not a part of that. May of 2021, we were successful in cross-fostering 4 pups from that litter out into the wild, and to this day, the 2 girls are being tracked. One does have puppies on the ground. The other one is mated up with a male, but they were unsuccessful. So hopefully next year they'll be successful.
So why is there a need for a red wolf reintroduction program?
So there are less than what they think 20 individuals out in the wild, and they're only found in one location in North Carolina. They are the most endangered canid species in the world, and it's really fortunate that we're here and we're involved in that program. So it's really beneficial to have them here, and we just expanded our red wolf area to be able to breed, which we have been, and we also can run a multi-generational pack. We can also separate for breeding, which sets us apart from other zoos. In AZA institutions, there were, I believe, 90 to 95 pups born this past year.
So story time with Zach real quick. So on vacation last year, we went to North Carolina, and we stopped at one of the little state park things, and there was a lady out front, and she was talking mainly about the elk that were in the area. But she had a picture of a red wolf, and I'm like, oh, tell me a little bit more about the red wolves. I'm like, where can I find them? She's like, you won't find them. They're pretty much extinct. We don't have any red wolves in North Carolina anymore. And I was like, yeah, you do, because they came from Akron.
A lot of the local people in North Carolina, they actually mistake the red wolves for coyotes. So they're around being tracked, but yeah, there's not that many.
And that's why our red wolves are next to coyotes here at the Akron Zoo, right?
Yeah, to draw that distinction. So
What are some of the distinctions between a red wolf and a coyote?
Their coloration is different. They're a different species, but just like dogs, they're similar enough that they look very closely alike. So they're different colors. They have different behavioral patterns. Red wolves have that red coloration, where coyotes more have that gray coloration. On average, the wolves are bigger. Coyotes are a lot smaller, and the wolves will live in bigger packs, where the coyotes are actually more solitary individuals.
Well, Jessica, you are ready to play a fun game with us.
Absolutely.
Zach.
So here at Uproar, we like to call it 10 questions. How it will work is you will ask us up to 10 yes or no questions in order to guess the animal we're thinking about. Okay?
Okay.
So to make it easier, since it's normally you get 20 or 21 questions, I will tell you where you're thinking about a mammal.
Okay.
Okay? All right, Jessica, you ready?
I am.
All right, ask away.
Okay. Is this mammal found in North America?
No.
It is not. But I will interject here too and say that we do have our own team of fact checkers. So we have our phones pulled out in case we don't know the answer to one of your questions. We will be checking live.
No pressure.
So first question, answer is no. Well, I do know that.
Is this animal larger than 100 pounds?
No.
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 Is this animal found in hot climates?
Yes.
Yes.
Is this animal live in Africa?
No.
No.
Is this animal a cat species?
No.
Part of the game is, we just make up our own rules here too. So if you would like a hint, we would be happy to give you a hint.
I would love a hint.
So in the southern hemisphere, and it's on an island.
Ooh, that's a great one. Are we talking about the Galapagos Islands?
No.
Is this animal found at the Akron Zoo?
No.
This animal's found at a zoo that is close to the Akron Zoo.
Okay, all right. Here's the hard part. I can think of so many animals, but, narrowing it down to 10 questions.
You don't want to waste a whole
All
question
right.
just by shouting
I
out
can
an
give
animal.
you a hint that might really narrow it down for you.
Oh, man, here we go.
It's a marsupial.
Are we talking about a kangaroo?
No.
No.
Ooh. Are we talking about a wallaby?
No.
No.
A platypus.
No.
No, but that would be
You-
fun. Uh-oh.
You-
You're
We're
on,
running out of questions here.
you're on your
man.
10th question, right?
I was gonna say you kind of have targeted the region.
Now I'm thinking, that I might not actually know this, and then as soon as you tell me, I'm
You
going to
know
be
it.
like,
Yeah, you know it.
They have a smooth brain.
What?
What the heck kind of question? What is that?
Google that?
Also,
Or did
how do you know
All right,
that?
Let me Google it.
I mean-
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Is that like
think he just
is
made
that
that
like a
up.
common trivial thing about this animal?
No.
I've never heard that.
Yes,
Often-
this is a real fact and
Yeah.
is true.
I'll
do
give
have
you.
smooth
I'll give you another
brains.
fact that's not weird. This animal is a common animal in kids' movies and cartoons.
And it's often called a bear.
Oh, now you're just giving it away.
Yeah,
Are
seriously.
you talking about a koala bear?
Yeah. Come
Oh
on,
my
she was
God.
on her last question.
Well, you could have let her ask the last question.
Man, I thought I'd give it away with the smooth brain thing.
Okay. Tell us about your I guess experience before the Akron Zoo.
Sure. So I went to Ohio Wesleyan University for college. I graduated with a zoology degree, and I started interning at the Columbus Zoo. My first internship was in their Congo expedition region, and then I went over to their Asia Quest region. After college, I got a seasonal keeper position working in the Heart of Africa area, and then switched over to Congo. And then shortly after that, I got my first full-time job working with the Abilene Zoo and was there for 6 years. And then I came back to Ohio for family reasons and found myself here at the Akron Zoo, and I absolutely love it here.
So, can you tell me the funniest bear story that you have experienced?
Oh my god.
They're just
I
hilarious.
have a couple. The end of winter, maybe middle end of winter, the horticulture staff and I went through and we were trimming behind all the big trees up against their primary containment fence line to make sure that it was good and safe. And so instead of hauling all of those tree branches and some of those trees out, we left them in the habitat. And Jackson absolutely loved it. He made beds all winter with those arborvitae branches. So I'm going to skip a little bit forward, and we're going to come to their absolute favorite day of the year, early signs of spring, when we fill up their pool for the first time. Best day ever, according to the Bears. They are playing in it all day long, can't get them out. It's a great time for us. It's a great time for guests. It's a great time for the Bears. So day 2, Jackson and Cheyenne decided to take every single tree branch into the pool, and a couple of people in the zoo got a little worried that the pool was going to break, the glass was going to break, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get them out, but we'll go ahead and try. So we hadn't done an emergency recall with them in a long time because wintertime they get sleepy. We try not to do it. So whenever we do an emergency recall, they come in to the sound of a cowbell. So I rang that cowbell and they stopped what they were doing and they came in and they were in within 4 minutes. And of course, they got cherry pie filling for that.
Yum.
One of my other favorite stories about the bears, the zoo had closed and Cheyenne was ready to come inside. She was telling us that she was ready. Her brother was sleeping out on the other side of the habitat, and I was calling his name, and he was refusing. And I just kind of jokingly looked at Cheyenne. I was like, will you please go get your brother? We have things to do today. And I kid you not, when I said that, she walked herself over to Jackson, smacked him on the face, and came back. And he still didn't get up. So we gave them a little break. We went to go take care of the lions. We came back down, and I opened up the door to where I can kind of see what's going on out on habitat without going in with them. He was on his back, batoning a stick in the air with his feet up. It was hilarious. And so finally I was called in. I was like, Jackson, inside. And he finally got up and came in. But it was pretty comical.
It's always fun to watch Jackson like picking on his sister, and then when she's like, I've had enough of you, she does not hold back. It's fantastic. You want to talk about girl power. Mm-hmm. He outweighs her by what, 200, 300 pounds?
Yeah.
And she pushes him around. It's fantastic.
He's just a little guy.
Can we go back to this cowbell thing? So the cowbell is used to do an emergency recall for the grizzly bears. What are some other things that we use for emergency recalls for other animals?
Our lions, they have a whistle, and then depending on the area, it could be whistles, it could be other bells, but I think those are the three main ones that we use.
Whistles, bells, and cowbells?
Yeah.
Can you describe the personalities of our red wolves and coyotes?
Sure. So our red wolves have their variety of personalities. Our male Diego, he is really not scared of anything. He's real brave. He protects his family. He is very curious about us. So, things that we really don't want to see in a red wolf, but he does make our life very interesting and entertaining and keeps us on our toes, which is great. So the other three wolves are more similar. Brave, she's our adult female. She is everything except brave. She's probably the most timid wolf that we have.
Aptly named.
Right. And then the two kids, it's been real fun watching them grow over the last year because they really came here as puppies, and when they first got here, they were always romping around and tumbling and getting into, little dog piles and chasing each other around the habitat. And they don't do that so much in the day now, but if you're at the zoo for a late event or an after hour event, they are always roughhousing and playing. And sometimes mom and dad will get into it. Dad's kind of the referee, You can hear them howling fairly often. So if there's ever like a police car going by or an ambulance, that'll kind of set them off, which is fun. Because when they all start howling, the coyotes will get into it, and it sounds like there's 30 wolves up there, which is really cool to hear. Coyotes, they are very skittish. We're a little bit more hands-on with them. They do station training in their habitat, so if guests are here, sometimes they'll see us feeding them on their rocks. But again, they're pretty timid animals. So
what are their names?
We have a male and female. Their names are Shyla and Kaliska. Shyla is the male and Kaliska is our female. We call her Callie for short. But the difference between them, Shyla, he's got a little bit more red on his face and along his fur, along his back. And Callie, she's a lot lighter. She's more gray. And then in the springtime, she doesn't shed real great. So she's got little what we call angel wings that kind of floof off of her body as she runs.
So, fun story time about our male coyote. Some amazing care that he's received here at the Akron Zoo. The two of them on Thanksgiving Day were playing and roughhousing and chasing each other throughout the whole habitat when all of a sudden one of them zigged while the other zagged, and they collided. And so because of this collision and the force of which they collided, Shyla actually basically shattered his entire leg, his front leg. And so our vet staff had to jump into action and do emergency surgery on Shyla, and they rebuilt his entire leg with rods, plates, and screws and everything. Because of the amazing relationship that our vet care and animal care teams have, they were able to keep him quiet and able to have his recovery. He would slowly move into the habitat more and more and more. He doesn't even have a limp anymore. It's been not quite 4 years since that happened. Wow. And it's just shows the care that our animals have from their care team. Our vet actually stated that had this happened to like a dog, an injury like this, they would have had to amputate. But thankfully, we were able to save his leg, and you can't even tell. That used to be how I told them apart. Shyla had a limp and Callie didn't. Not anymore.
Well, thank you again, Jessica, for coming. Is there anything else you would like us to know?
You know, working with the grizzly bears and the two canid species here at the zoo has been absolutely incredible. It keeps me very humbled, and they keep me on my toes. And working with them, I have a very high respect. I've always had a high respect for these animals, but you know, one of the things that working with these individuals really is inspiring and just eye-opening that we do have these amazing animals here, like not literally in our backyards, but here in the U.S. in our backyards that we have. Working with them, I get to learn about a lot of the human-animal conflict that is going on out in their native habitats, and how to share with people to do safe camping practices, or when they're traveling, just letting them know that they're not the smallest things out there, or the biggest things out there. And to be mindful of that. It's really incredible that they're here, and they just gave me a huge appreciation for those as a species.
Is there any conservation efforts that people can help with?
Yeah, the big conservation project that we participate in is the Red Wolf Coalition, and so that's working with the species survival plan of the red wolves and integrating them back into the wild. So that's the big conservation organization that we support. For grizzlies and coyotes, just being aware that they're out there and continuing education and safe traveling practices.
All right. Well, that really concludes our show. So everyone, thanks, Jessica, for coming onto the podcast and telling us all about the grizzly bear stories and all the conservation efforts that we are doing through our Carolina Red Wolves. And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Uproar is a production of the Akron Zoo, produced by Vince Jeffries, scheduling and recording by Zach Berkey, sound mixing and editing by Caleb Morgan, researchers Zach Berkey, Randy Thomas, Elena Bell, and Sam James. Uproar is a weekly podcast with new episodes every Thursday. For more information on the Akron Zoo, visit akronzoo.org. For more information on Uproar, visit akronzoo.org/uproar.